Hello there, my name is Rolando Porras. I am the founder and director of Choose Life Abundant. I am absolutely delighted that you have decided to join us, to be on board. For the next several days, we're going to be working together, you and me, and maybe someone else. I like to refer to the work that we do as we. Sometimes you'll see me by myself doing this work, but I'm never alone. I have a senior partner that's with us, and that's our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. And I am the junior partner. So without further ado, let me get started here with an orientation presentation for everyone that comes here and helps us out in the work that's appointed before us. Let's get started. So welcome to Choose Life Abundant again. We received your application, and I want to congratulate you by joining us. You've entered a very special kind of work. It's a solemn, special endeavor that's before us, and that's called the medical missionary work, which in its essence is the gospel practice. Now, by signing up, you're actually collaborating to finishing up the work. What work? Well, Matthew 12:14 tells us, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Now, it's understood that what we need to do for the end to come is to proclaim the gospel. But here it tells us there's one key word: witness. And so in reality, what we are missing is not so much of who Jesus is and what he did for you, rather what Jesus looks like in action. And so the moment we are witnessing, meaning the acts of service, benevolent kind of works, that's where people will start noticing a difference between what people are saying and between what people are doing. A complete gospel, if you may. The question, therefore, then is, if this gospel, because there's a gospel that can be proclaimed, but there's a gospel that can be put into action, what then is the gospel? And you may know the answer to that. All that Christ did so that we could receive his merits. In other words, he exchanged our predicament, which was a final death penalty, because we were riddled with a terminal cancer called sin. And in our place, he brought his own precious and innocent blood to be the antidote. But for that to happen, he had to yield his blood for ours, and that required his death. In other words, he had to die so that you could live, have a second chance in life, be clean from that terminal cancer called sin, so that the penalty of a broken law would be waived. You could walk free from the trial, from the courts of heaven, while he stays and takes your penalty willingly. All you have to do is surrender your past, your mistakes, and receive it. Receive what? Receive his victory over death, meaning life, and victory over temptations. And this is the power that we're missing to live a better, a more pure life, if you may. And thank him. Believe that you now have that. And it's not a feeling, but a solid belief that this is so. Then others shall see his witness. When that righteousness is in us, people will be able to tell. So in other words, the gospel is Christ in us. And the question I have for you is, are you ready to be a living epistle of his character? The vehicle for that is our humble ministry, A Home Sanitarium. There's no better place to put this into action, I believe, than the sanitarium. Now, where does this sanitarium come from? Where does Choose Life come from? It is being born out of God's heart to help others. And so what we need to do is ready our visitors to meet our God. We got to prepare people to meet our God. Just like the same set of events that took place in the Exodus. They were preparing, and finally they get so close to Mount Sinai, they get 3 days of preparation. Why? They needed to be made right with God so that they would be able to meet with him at that event of Mount Sinai. There's another reason why sanatoriums exist, not only to meet our God, but to share present truth. And the question is, what is present truth? Present truth, I'll share a little bit more about that as we get through this, but present truth is to discover what the stories of the Bible are telling us. They apply to those days, the old days, but they also apply to our days. And I'm going to give you a way to do present truth. Every time you study your Bible, you can apply the present truth tools so that this can happen while you're studying. Okay. Now for this project, I have given everything that the Lord has given to me. My retirement account is pretty much everything out here in display. And I have invested whatever I had so that you and me could be collaborators with the King of Kings in the only work, my friend, that will remain as we approach the end of this planet's history. So with that said, let us be good stewards in this place, and in this and in everything in this property. It's good to know that it belongs to him. It's no longer mine. I have given it to him. The table that you're eating food from used to be mine. I grabbed everything that I own and I gave it to him, and I said, it's yours now. It's for the use of your it's now for your use, for the sake of those that want to visit us. And therefore, let us be those good messengers for you. So it is important that as we are here, that we can stay motivated, and let us keep presently that whatever we do for those that come here that may be weak and enfeebled, we actually are really doing it unto God himself with the resources that he provides us. Because every time that a visitor comes, they do, we are a charity, so we don't profit from what we're receiving. But those resources that come in, it helps us extend the message. It helps us provide for them, for you and for me. And so we must join these efforts with prayer, because there is satanic oppression, satanic attack. I have had multiple stories where I even had a lady staying in the master bedroom the first night, and she struggled in the middle of the night. She said that she woke up, saw a man standing by her side, dark, dressed up in darkness, and she dialogued with him, and he was asking her, why are you here? Do you know who this house belongs to? And so forth. He was asking questions that were creating doubt in her. And she said, no, I don't know who this house belongs to. It belongs to Rolando. And he said, no, it doesn't. It belongs to, and he shows her a lady with blonde hair, short sized. And she woke up and she says, no, I am staying here. I don't care what you're saying. I'm going to stick with the program. At 5 in the morning, sort of 6 in the morning sort of thing, where we wake up for exercise, I came up and she was distraught by that whole event. And I said, no, this house belongs to the Lord. This entity was deceiving you, and there's no blonde ladies here. And I started doing some recollection, and I found that the builders of this house, there's a husband and a wife, and she had blonde hair, but they sold the place. So it's no longer theirs, it's now the Lord's. And so I told her, listen, this is a good confirmation that we're in the right track, and we got to stay prayerful, because I can tell you multiple stories where things just break, collapse, out of nowhere, things don't work. The list is long. So you probably see me praying quite a lot. And if our visitor is open for prayer, then we will be praying for everything. And if they're not, we can gauge that based on their how familiar or friendly are they with religion. Then you and I will be praying in our hearts, in our minds. And that way we can start seeing how the Lord has power to actually bring healing, guide each one of us. And these will encourage us. It will bring our faith up. But to be ready for the mission that's before us as good soldiers, we need to recharge every morning. We need to wake up with recharged batteries, because yes, serving others is pure joy, but it also can be draining. And so what we need to do is we need to find a good, healthy balance between the things that we need to do and the rest periods. That's important to consider. To keep the joy alive, I encourage everyone to start a morning with a personal devotional. A devotional is spending time with God in His Word, and that will certainly recharge him or her. So how to do a devotional? It's important to always start it with prayer, asking the Lord to help you connect with Him, that He can fill you with His Holy Spirit, that He can fill you with that special love for others, special wisdom and strength. And what I ask Him on top of those things is to be baptized anew. Baptize me every day, Lord. Baptize me today. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. Okay. Now, to find that special time without distractions, without rushing, or without fearing that there's things to be done, it helps us to wake up a little bit earlier than our visitors. A good time, if exercise is at 6 in the morning, a good time is maybe 5 or even earlier. Sometimes when we're in programs, so I wake up at 4:15, 4:30, 4:45. But to be able to do this, it's important that we start the night before. So if we can go to bed at 9, usually we finish our programs at 7. And by 7 to 9, we have some free time to catch up on things. Maybe what I do is I write a new schedule for the next day. Every day we're going to have a schedule. I'm going to share one with you, one with our visitor, and one for me. And it's pretty much the same schedule. It's just photocopies of it. And so from 7 to 9, you have free time to, if you like to shower again, you can. If you like to make some phone calls, we have a phone next to our TV that you can use. It's pretty much the most secure because we have satellite internet, and so sometimes that's hit or miss. But yeah, we want to really wind down and be able to be in bed early. Also, here's what I was sharing earlier about incorporating present truth into our Bible studies. What I find to be helpful for me is to really get into the stories that I'm reading in the Bible. I don't have a specific structure to do my studies in the morning because I like to let the Lord be dynamic with me. And if He wants to lead me to a place in the Bible, I let Him, or a place into a special devotional. I'm open to that. But here's what I say. I ask Him, what would you like me to study today? And I enter the stories by asking these 3 questions. Who am I in the story? What is the problem? And how was it solved? If you ask those 3 questions, you are able to get into the story. Whatever was written thousands of years before become present. They become truth that is present. You see, the word present truth is now, you can put that together now. So let's move on to serving is what Jesus sought to teach us. That's, if you were going to ask me what is the purpose of life, the purpose of life is to be well equipped, in good shape. For what? For serving others, just like Jesus did. But how can we serve if our pride is on the way? The question, therefore, then is, how can I be humble? And you are going to find out as we go through this program that pride is our biggest enemy. It is the root of many of our illnesses, if I may put it that simply. In fact, 9 out of 10 diseases originate in the mind. And if you start looking closely to what are we telling ourselves, what's in our minds, it's very linked to pride. And so it's very important that we are aware of that. The Lord Jesus had strategies. Remember, foot washing. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, gave us an example by lowering down to the position of a servant. And He then said that this is what we should do, be servants. Okay. When we are serving, we will encounter many difficult moments. And this is the greatest tool to find or identify that there's still things in our character that needs to be corrected. Serving, as I said earlier, is the purpose of life, according to what I understand when I read my Bible. And it appears to be the culture in the life to come in heaven. Angels' roles are just to serve, to be messengers, to be doing things for someone else. So if we're going to be living in that environment, hopefully one day very soon, my question therefore then is, should we not get started getting really familiar with this mechanism of healing that places us in God's will? Because when you're serving, you are getting healed. Healing happens when we are thinking outside of ourselves. So, by the way, this is a great opportunity. What a fantastic opportunity, if I may put it that way, to be here and to be his hands and his feet. I believe that sanatoriums are the perfect way to get this done. Now, we're going to be doing work together. We're going to be putting food together. We're going to be able to help someone in and out hydrotherapy tanks. And the quality of, or the product of our work tells of our character. So the quality of what we're doing is representative of what's inside of us. And by the way, many of our visitors, it may be their first time that they're exposed to Christianity. And we need to keep in mind that first impressions last. So if we're doing really high quality work, that's a great impression. If we're looking our best, that's a great first impression. Sometimes though, many of our visitors have had an exposure to Christianity, and unfortunately a very negative one. For them to say that they have no more interest in it because they say that they tried it and it didn't work. But then I would actually ask, did they find conversion in that experience, or was it mostly of a superficial experience? And so, yes, when I say that, I am trying to convey that they might have been spiritually abused, and they may have a very strong prejudice against Christianity. And so then this work that we're doing, you and me, might be that great opportunity to vindicate God's character. And guess what? He's trusting you and me with this work. Very, very responsible, high responsibility being put before us. Now, it's not so much what we say, as we learned in the first slide. It's about what we do, what we can demonstrate. And our visitors are looking very closely to what we're saying, but mostly to what we are doing. And they're looking to see if there's a match between those two. It helps us to remind ourselves that all that we do, we ultimately are doing it to him, the Lord Jesus. And so that helps us to stay more accountable, if you may. And so we want to make sure that as we're doing this work, we're going to enter a routine where we want to be on time. So if exercise is at 6, I highly encourage you to join me, showing up for exercise, because we want to, in a way, be influenced, and this creates pressure to our visitors to join us. If I'm by myself doing the exercise, it's not the same effect on our visitor, and they might just say, well, if the staff is not showing up, then they feel like they have a get out of jail card, if you may put it that way. We also want to avoid negative talk, gossiping, talking bad about others. Evil surmising is what the Bible calls it. We also want to stop or avoid patronizing our guests. Patronizing means it's like you're acting like a mother, and you're, chastening the kid or the visitor as if he was a child. We also don't want to preach to our visitors. Preaching is to talk about biblical matters, to point out their mistakes. And sometimes people might just feel like we're holier than they, and they might get that impression. We want to be real with them, and we want to show also that we are creatures like them that struggle as well, but we do find victory, and that's why we're here to share those tools with them. We don't want to reprimand the visitors, and the list goes on. We also want to be examples of how to follow the 8 laws of health, and that includes temperance. And when I say temperance, that includes, sometimes we may make some really good meals, and oftentimes we want to overeat. And so we want to make sure that we are good examples to our visitors. If they're struggling with eating disorders, if they're struggling with overweight and obesity, and food as their comfort is their issue, here we need to show that we can have victory over this, and we need to make sure that when we're serving our meals, we set up the foods as a buffet behind us right here. We want to set up the food not on the table. Sit in the table, you highly encourage, or it's encouraged for them to serve themselves a little bit more food. Whereas if they have it here on the back, they need to get up and walk around to go get it. We also don't want to make a lot of food. And if we do, we want to be very careful or strategic in only serving in the buffet enough food so that people cannot repeat to do thirds and fourths, but maybe just seconds, okay? Now, if we're very active in exercise and all that, I understand that you need to make your meals a little dense. And so I will be doing the same thing. I will be probably making my food a little bit more dense. But yeah, we want to show temperance, and I don't know how much food that means for you, but I know that if we are prayerful, the Lord can give us convictions. And so also, we want to also share what we know. We don't want to share things that we don't know. And so hydro is one good example of that. If we're going to teach or help someone through hydro, I would hope that you have gone through hydro yourself. We can have you come in a day before, which I would love that, or maybe 2 days before, and we can get through some of these things together, tying some loose ends, writing some welcome notes and all of that. We want to add warmth to the program. We stand out from other programs in that regard, that we're very custom and very personal with our visitors. It's a very key component that will make or break the situation. And so, yes, hydro, I would probably get you through that example. We heat the jacuzzi and cool down the tank so that you can go through it. I will be teaching you how to do it. If we don't have the time to do that, I highly recommend you start doing it at home with construct showers. You do 3 minutes hot water. Don't burn yourself, but you do your hot 3 minutes, and then you do 30 seconds cold. And you want to do, that's 1 round. You want to do 3 rounds of that, always finishing up with cold water. After that, drink lots of water. Make sure your feet are warm. Bundle up with clothes. And so I want you to have that experience, because if we're sitting here and we're talking about stuff and how challenging hydro is, and she's the only one doing hydro, our visitor, that's not good encouragement for her. But I always tell our visitors, I'm doing hydro just like you are. In fact, I do it every day. Every single day of my life, I'm doing it. Okay. So doing your own devotionals, we're encouraging our visitors to do their own devotionals. And if we're not doing them, it's kind of hard to convince them that this matters. Okay. Let's move over to being a safe zone. And by the way, this matters. If we're doing the things that we're telling them to do, it provides with them credibility. It adds credibility to us, and we become more safe to them because they know that they can trust us. Remember, they are evaluating us, and if what we're teaching them really works, and they're interested in congruence, whether what we're saying we're doing, but we are actually the ones teaching them. So if we're teachers of this stuff, that means we have to have gone through it and experiment with it and know how to deal with it. Okay, so let's move on to being a safe person, because Choose Life wants to be a safe zone for them. You see, most churches these days are unsafe. Sometimes people are getting divorced. 51% of people are getting divorced. And sometimes people are dealing with 85% of the nation is overweight. And there's obesity in there too. And so there's diabetes, there's all sorts of issues. And we want to come in, we want to find help. And church is supposed to be a hospital, but once we go to church with our ailments, we don't find that to be a safe zone, because people may criticize us, judge us, avoid us, or want to fix us by preaching to us. So that's not the place of the members in church. That's the place of the Holy Spirit. And therefore, when we take that role, we make people uncomfortable and we make them ourselves unsafe for them. But yes, our visitors are not here because they're doing great at life, killing it. No, they are here because they are struggling with not just a mental illness, but physical, emotional, and spiritual situations. And that requires that we should be patient with them, and that we can be present so that we can be safe for them. In other words, that they can open up their wounds to us. They open up their hearts, because a heart that's not opening up is a heart that you cannot find healing for. So how do you establish yourself as a safe person? Well, as I was implying earlier, we don't want to judge or condemn people. That's number one. We don't want to avoid or reject people. Number two, oftentimes we include one-ups there. And one-up means that there's a person here and they're excited about telling you about how they bought or how they gone through this experience. Maybe they can tell you that they did 15 seconds with the cold water in the hydro, and they're so happy to share that with you. A one-up would look like 15 seconds, that's nothing. I know a guy that did 30 minutes of the cold water, and then they just shut them down. Okay, so it's not a competition. We want to let them savor the flavors of their experience, and support them with that. Number three rather, is we don't want to fix people by telling them that you have to have more faith, or let me share the spirit of prophecy. And by the way, sometimes people are not open to the spirit of prophecy, so we have to be very careful with that. And we just want to stick with the Bible. And if the person is open to it, we start sharing. What I actually do is I bring a lot of the quotes from Ellen White, and I don't call them Ellen White says. I said Bible commentaries show or tell or say. And so that helps them to, have their guards down. If they're open to it, it's much easier. We can be very transparent. But progressively, we can start sharing about Ellen White if the Lord inspires us to do that. And it's most likely that will happen. We want to be a good listener. So that's the next point here. We have several more to go. We want to be good listeners. We have 2 years for one reason and just 1 month. So when they're sharing their stories with us, don't want to interrupt them and monopolize the conversation, cutting them off, But if they do get sometimes conversations they can get really excited about stuff and they might just monopolize the conversation. As staff members, we want to allow them to open up, but sometimes they can get carried away. So if they monopolize time, which is of an essence here, we really want to get stuff done. We want to cut in gently by saying something like, I really appreciate what you're saying, but time is running out and we need to move on to what's left in this hour or story or workbook, whatever. But we can talk about it later. Maybe we can talk about it when we go for a walk, or we can continue conversation to be continued, right? And so I've noticed how that has been a problem, where we don't stop people from talking too much and we don't get stuff done. We have to cut down our morning and evening thoughts, and that's a pity. Empathy versus sympathy, very important. I don't know if you know the difference between these two. It's pretty much sympathies is more about, I feel sorry this happened to you. I feel sorry for your loss. Let's say the person has lost their job, and I could say, I feel sorry that you lost your job. It could have been worse though, So that's sympathy. Empathy is the opposite of that. See, empathy is more about you, right? The other person, not me. Sympathy is about how I feel about it. That's sympathy, is how I feel about it. Empathy is about how you're feeling about it. So let me give you an example. If you lost your job, you might just say something, wow, you must have been devastated. You must have been hopeless when that happened to you. Okay, I can't imagine how you might have felt. You see the difference? I'm emphasizing or focusing on what they felt rather on how I feel about their misery. You follow me? Okay, so we also don't, that's another step, another point here is we don't want to be lecturers. Like, yes, there will be some lectures, but we don't want to be lecturing people all day long, like a parent speaking down to people. As you know, teachers that we are together, we don't want to, we have to have certain conversational skills, and we want to direct the conversations, but we don't want to dominate the conversations by talking too much. So that means we need to be comfortable with quiet moments. But if there's too many quiet moments, yeah, we can encourage our friends to speak by asking them questions about topics that are regarding what we're doing, perhaps, questions about what they're struggling with in the program, questions about what we learned through the studies or the spiritual lessons or the lectures in the TV. And, you know, we can contribute with them about, yeah, I like what they taught me about this or that in the movie or in the TV or whatever. But I like to be intentional and strategic about what we're talking about, because we don't have much time. We only have 5 or maybe 10 days with them. It really doesn't matter so much to ask, what is your favorite color? Rather than ask them questions as to, what have you picked up to be significant from the 10 cognitive distortions? Have you identified which one you are? And there we are encouraging for them to really settle the lessons in their minds, right? Not to say that trivial conversation doesn't have a place. Sometimes we need to be casual about stuff, but you see my point. Sometimes I see the complete opposite, where we're just talking trivialities, and that's not encouraging for them. Sometimes most of our visitors are introverts and they feel drained. They feel like they have to converse. And so they sometimes just want to hide because there's too much conversation. Anyway, it's hard to know, but we just need to be aware of social cues, okay? That will give us green light or red lights as to what we're doing. Now, they may say things that we don't really agree with, or even approve, but that's not our place to tell them that. We gotta respect their opinions and thank them for sharing, okay? If they share something that's shocking, they might have had sexual abuse in their lives, or they might do some different habits that we're not familiar with. It's important that we do not open up our mouths and be acting all shocked, okay? Don't be so surprised, don't gasp. We must contain ourselves and be composed and be compassionate, because if we show some signs of shock and surprise, they may realize that you're not trained in what we're doing, okay? We just want to be friendly, enthusiastic, but here's the key: present with them. And yeah, we also want to respect their time. As I was saying, there might be introverts here, and we want to stick to the point and stay with brief comments, but to the point. If you see that they're not interested in speaking too much and it's very, very reserved person, you may want to draw them out, but with respect if they don't want to. How do you draw them out? Just say, how's your day going? You don't want to challenge them or confront them, but just you want to support them, okay? They are here because they want to learn. And so how do we know what they're interested in? Is by us asking questions, and we analyze what they're telling us. We prayerfully analyze their needs, that we can actually supply them, but do not saturate them with religious themes, for they may not be ready for that. I have had many experiences where we have volunteers or friends or other members or whatever that are very connected with, they're very interested in spiritual matters, and that's all they like to talk about. And if there's a person that is not familiar with that, with spiritual themes, they might find that tiresome. I, for once, when I wasn't a person of the faith, I found that tiresome myself, and I would want to avoid people, and I didn't have a nice I didn't find it too interesting to talk with them, because all they want to talk about was abstract themes. So we want to put things in a balance, okay? Other matters to keep in mind, speaking about religious matters, they might have theological misunderstandings. So they might think that, we, by the way, we abide by the 28 fundamental beliefs of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And we want to make sure that if we're going to be working together, that we're in agreement with that, right? There's no judgment if the person is not, but I know that perhaps the timing is not right for us to work together. However, if you are in agreement with those 28 fundamental beliefs, then it makes it easier for us to work together. Sometimes, though, we might find we might get so encouraged, or we might find what's the word? We might get so excited to want to share who Daniel 7 displays as the little horn, who Daniel 7 identifies as the little horn, as the papacy. And we might want to bring the little horn up to them, but they may not be ready for that. Okay, so if you notice that they're coming in here, we're going to start from 0. We're going to try to ramp up things so that we can get to that point. And we're going to just really briefly touch at that very end of the program. And if they are led by the Spirit and we are led by the Spirit, the question will come. And therefore, we can open up Daniel 7 and go through it, okay? So we're just going to let the Lord do that for us, and be ready, be listening. And if the question comes, we're going to throw a hook out there. And if the person takes it, we're going to be ready, okay? Now, if there's theological misunderstandings or from our visitor, please bring them up to me. Instead of actually you doing all the work of presenting the truth as much as you can, we want to be strategic. We want to work together. We want to be prayerful as to how to bring it to them, but it's helpful to know where they are. So by discussing that, you and I, we can do that very carefully, okay? Again, their hearts may not be ready for it, so we have to be prayerful. And so we like to have the Spirit to guide us and the proper presentation for it. Okay. It's important to bring that up because at the end, we probably have earned their trust for them to really believe what we're sharing with them. But if we bring that earlier, they don't even trust us, and they might just feel like we're here to proselytize, meaning to convert them. So that's important, okay? That said, I always like to start a program with if we're gonna commit to work together, I highly encourage that we stick with day 1 all the way to day 10 together, to avoid coming in and out of the program or coming in late the program. Because remember, we're trying to establish trustworthiness with our visitors. And if we start with someone at the beginning and then we have to start with another person at the middle of it, that new person has not earned that trust of that person yet. So that person needs to work with that for the last part of the remaining part of the program. And it's kind of not conducive for what we're trying to do. But I understand if things are the way they are and that's what we have, that's what we're going to have to work with, but be aware of that so that in the little time that you have, you can really earn their trust. And so that it feels for them that they can do that, okay? Now, oftentimes you're going to see some tears. Sometimes people will break down with sadness. And, when we're going through the lessons, there's some heavy things in there that might just convict people. And if you see that, make sure that we are noticing these things, that we can bring a tissue to them. And sometimes we want to give them a hug, but beware, because oftentimes people may react to that the wrong way. And, these days it's gotten really complicated. And so what I encourage us to do is to please ask permission if you can offer affection. Please ask permission. Is it okay? Would you be open to a hug right now? And they might just say no. And if they say no, you just have to smile and be okay with that, okay? Don't feel rejected. Don't feel sad about it. They may not be ready for it. Remember, they may come from a background where they have been abused. And so they don't know how to deal with it. A hug may actually open up wounds and bring them into a panic attack. And so it's not about us, it's about what they're going through. So it's when we think it's about us, it's more of a selfish thing, it's more of a prideful thing. But when we start thinking about what they've gone through and what they are struggling with, it stops being about us. It's very important. So be mindful of nonverbal cues. Sometimes they just want to avoid certain things, and just be on the lookout for that. Be strategic about giving gifts. Sometimes we get so close with our visitors that we want to shower them with love and gifts. We had a situation where we had a program. We're trying to get someone off sugar, and the sugar addiction is a real thing. And at the end of the program, we had someone that was helping us on and off. She wasn't aware of the details, and at the end of the program, she did bring some gift that had sugar in it, and that was hard, because I can't be the police to say, no, you can't give that to them in front of them while she was giving it to them, because it came with so much love. But I did tell them, this gift might not be the right timing for it, but as soon as you finish with what we're sharing, the program, the protocols, then that probably would come in there. That probably would need to wait for them, right? But if they're addicted to sugar, gift of sugar, even though they may overcome it in the program, by giving that to them, it might awaken that addiction in the future. So it happened to us already, and I highly encourage that we discuss about giving gifts before we give them, okay? Sugar is one thing, and then acid foods is the other. If we're in a program sending people on alkaline foods, you don't want to give an acid food to them. Acid foods are pretty much, I'll give you an example, anything processed, and sometimes rice is acid, black beans is acid, but white beans is alkaline, quinoa is alkaline. So there's some things to be, we're going to talk about that in the program. You're going to learn about it. I share about being strategic about food portions. Sobremesa is what we want to avoid. When we do seconds, then we're actually, taking time away from the program. It's okay to do seconds, don't get me wrong, but when we do thirds and fourths, and when we do seconds and we stay here and stick around having long conversations, that's called sobremesa. Sobremesa is that, it translates from Spanish to English, over the table. We've gone over. And in Mexico, I used to visit there, sobremesas would go 2-3 hours. So that's not efficient to what we're trying to do here, okay? So let's say you have your meal, the preparation of the meal maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, then you have the meal for another hour. That's almost an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then you add another hour of sobremesa. You see what I'm saying? It can get complicated. Now, we're going to be talking a lot about food here, and we're going to be supporting the corrective diet, but not everyone will have the corrective diet in our programs. If you see we're doing the corrective diet, let's stick with that philosophy only. If we're not, let's stick to whatever we are suggesting that the person do. I know there's a lot of diets out there, but we don't want to confuse our guests. Say, for example, there is the autoimmune diet, there's a corrective diet, there's the diabetic diet. Everyone has their pros and cons, but if we're doing the corrective diet, let's not mix it up with something else and confuse them further. The corrective diet in itself is enough information for them to take with. Yeah, as they're actually going through these diets, and fasting, there will be some fasting. They will go through some irritating moments, and remember, we're flipping their lives around. So let us remember that on top of their ailments, the protocols that we'll be sharing will make certain things worse. Fasting will make things worse. They might bring a person down to illness. And so they may lash out at us and be impatient with us. But again, we don't take these things personal. We want to be well aware of what the 10 cognitive distortions are, to identify where they're coming from. And if you're not aware of what the 10 cognitive distortions are, I will let me know. I'll send you a little spreadsheet, it's pictures, an Excel sheet with pictures that will describe these things, and it's important to have them. There will be one of those, I hope, hanging in your room, it's always important to memorize these things. So we're also going to talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to process when people are mean to us, to process these issues so that we don't take these things personal. Okay, and we want to be always reframing from negative to more realistic thinking. But yeah, whenever this happens and it catches you on a curve, before you open up your mouth, just pray in your minds, okay? For God to help you stay objective. If you notice odd behaviors from our visitors, let me know. What do I talk about? What am I talking about is that if they start showing signs that they want to end their lives, suicidal behavior, if they're actually resorting to drugs, that's grounds for us ending the program. If they're hiding junk food in their bags and eating it, or eating past hours, coming into the fridge past the hour of, let me know, please. I may not be present when that happens. And don't worry about telling me. It's you and I, we're in the same team here. If you see our guests being disruptive in our sessions with opinions and seem to go off on a tangent and they don't let us get through our program, we need to be considerate of their opinions, yes, even if we disagree with them, but we need to gently cut them off by thanking them and saying, thank you for sharing, but we don't praise or reprimand what they shared. And oftentimes it's hard. So what we want to do is kind of change the topic gently by perhaps bringing someone else in the conversation and saying, what do you think about this topic or theme or idea? You want to bring that conversation back by reminding them that we're on a tight schedule. And so, you know, if they want to talk about these matters, we can talk them after, or we can bring them up to the director with me or the other persons in the program, if there is any other person in the program. Now, if you notice that someone hasn't talked and they finally open up in one of our sessions and they just take the time, let them be. Don't shut them down. It's a breakthrough for them to actually open up. But, you know, some of this disruptive behavior includes, you know, people that want to spread doubts around. So they might just be questioning everything and doubting, creating doubts for people. Sometimes we might have people that are know-it-alls, and it's okay. They might express their opinions. We just move on by saying, thank you for sharing. Sometimes people just want to be repetitive about things. Again, thank you for sharing. Okay, well, let me tell you about this other thing. We change the topic. Sometimes people have hidden agendas. I have had that before, where someone comes in here not interested in the program, but they were interested in sharing with us theology that was didn't match with what we believe. Sometimes you might have people that are argumentative and challenging. We don't want to enter into these debates with people. Okay, they say something, okay, that's fine. We move on forward. We don't agree with them. We just say, okay. Okay doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them. And if there is some miscommunication or confusion between anyone, we just want to always ask to clarify. Excuse me, what do you know? What do you mean by this? Or can you clarify what that means? I'm not sure I understand. If they're asking you something that you don't know about, like the corrected diet or something, and you don't know the answer, say, I don't know, but we can ask Orlando, or we can certainly find out. Okay. Again, we want to make sure that we're on top of our curfew and showing up to the events on time. And if you're walking with our visitor while I'm doing the dishes here, and I share with you that we have 10 minutes for a walk, make sure you take a little watch with you and just, you know, keep an eye on that timer, okay? Sometimes that 10 to 15-minute walk ends up being 45 minutes, and here we are, they missed out on one of the Netley lectures, and that's such a pity. So yes, we want to be helpful to them in terms of managing their time. They're not here to manage anything. They're here to be led by us. And so that means also let's help them get onto the program and their schedules, okay? We're responsible for that for them. So yes, let's help them join every activity as possible. If they don't want to exercise, let us encourage them and say, hey, I understand that, you know, your back might be in pain. Have you thought about walking? Have you thought about maybe just doing as much as you can, or maybe, you know, as long as you're moving? We're encouraging them, right? If they don't want to go outside because it's too hot, we can say, hey, you know, maybe we can bring this glass with water and it's cool, or maybe we can work that over there in the shade, or maybe we can do something that, you know, accommodate them, right? If we're going to be examples to them, we want to be very careful with our social media consumption. We highly encourage not to have phones around us. We want to leave our phones in our rooms. Why? Because the moment you pick up a phone is the moment they'll copy you. They'll do the same thing. And so, and it's even worse when they see us on Facebook or something. They probably, oh, there's Signal, they'll go on it, and now they're hooked on that stuff. We have very limited Wi-Fi here, so highly encouraged to be as discreet as possible. If you need to use your phone, keep checking in your room, or go outside when you go for your walk and take a look out there, but not so much in front of them, please. We want to encourage an electronic fast on them And so we have to be examples of that too. Cooking is a very important component of our program. Sometimes we have visitors with OCDs, obsessive compulsive disorders, germaphobes, and so forth. So yes, we want to make sure we wash our hands every single time we cook. We want to incorporate them into a cooking class so that they can cut some things and chop some other things, but we also want them to wash our hands. So we often like to start with prayer and then we wash our hands. Obviously, we don't want to bring our phones there, and if they do bring their phones for pictures, I encourage them to actually take pictures, but the thing is they need to wash their hands every single time they use their phone, because phones can actually be collectors of feces, fecal matter. And so if you reach out for your phone, please rewash your hands. And we want to remind our visitors of that too. So, oh, phone, we got to wash our hands again. Our guests are struggling with compromised immune systems, so it is important that we are taking this serious. We don't want to bring extra germs for them. We have had someone that actually fell sick with the food that we're eating, not because the food was poor, but perhaps his hands were not washed or something. And that was such a tough situation for him and for us. If your hands, because you've been working outside or you're chopping something and you get cut or injured, you got to stop right there, put everything that you're using away or throw it out. And we have gloves, okay? So there's injuries in your hand, we will use gloves. If our visitor prefers us to use gloves, we will use gloves, okay? We don't want to lick anything also. If we're going to be testing foods, we have special spoons that we will put in our mouths and then put it in the sink. We don't touch that anymore, okay? Another very important thing that we should remember is to always grab the silverware and the dishes that we're using to serve our guests and throw them in the dishwasher, and always press the function for sanitizing. This is an excellent practice of hygiene, not only for their sake and for our sake as well. Speaking of pictures, it is very important that we don't take any pictures unless we ask permission of our visitors. Also, we don't want to be talking about them with others on the phone or sharing anything that's personal about them. They're here trusting in privacy, and so we want to honor that for them. Yeah, I understand sometimes it gets hot here and we may get tired, and we want to avoid the appearance of taking naps. If you want to take a nap, take a small break somewhere, maybe while they're watching something, like our lectures, digital lectures, and then you can take a 30-minute nap, 20-minute nap. I don't encourage them because it'll disrupt your night sleep, but I understand if you're really wrecked and knackered, I get it. Again, do it discreetly. And so we want to be examples that I know they will come in with a lot of fatigue and people are used to naps, but we're examples that you don't need naps to make it. You just need to have a good lifestyle. Also important how we dress. I'm not a stickler about wearing long skirts for everything. I don't mind if you don't wear the long skirts, but I highly encourage you to keep a modesty as a mindful of that, okay? Why? Because if there's males as visitors, and we're wearing, not me, but if someone is wearing a mini skirt or some really tight yoga pants or whatever, by the way, there's no yoga in our program, and there will never be yoga in our program, but that word just came up. And you learn about why that is when we do the program. But we have one of our lectures that touches on that. But yeah, going back to that matter, we want to be discreet because we don't want to distract our visitors, especially the male ones. If you're female and there's no male visitors, and we have other male volunteers coming in and out, that might distract all of us. And so I highly encourage to keep an eye on that, please. Also, if there is a romantic interest between staff members or visitors, please refrain from that. Highly encourage you not to go that way. It'll be grounds for us terminating the program, and it's very disruptive and distractive. If you want to do that, please do it outside of the program, because yeah, this is holy grounds, and we really need to make sure that we don't provoke the Holy Spirit away. Let us remain tidy. It's been said that angels like to inhabit places that are organized. God is a God of order. And so we want to make our visitors' experience a special one. And it tells about our faith too. If If you see our visitor doing narcotics, please let me know. That also means that we are not going to be doing that stuff. And so please refrain from that. That would be grounds for dismissal as well. We want to be always punctual. We've said that before. I understand that sometimes we want to bring our own music. We want to highly discourage that. We are here to teach about music that has the right syncopation. We use music as therapy, and so we have to have the right kind of music, and mostly will be classical baroque that we will be using here. And we have special speakers for that, for when there is dining, or sorry, yeah, when we're eating, and then when they're doing hydro, and sometimes for the gym. Sometimes we're in the blue greenhouse, we're going to be sometimes using that kind of music. Board games, sometimes people like to use board games. Yes, we have puzzles, and that is highly encouraged. But I don't recommend doing anything else like solitaire, cards, and anything like that. We discourage that, okay? There's reasons for that. You might hear the rain behind me. It's just started to pour, and I'm happy for that. It's been several weeks now of heat wave. Help us conserve our resources. Yes, so ACs, when you see an AC running and there's no one in the room, please help me by turning it off. It gets really expensive, and remember, we are a charity that is not profiting, and every penny counts here. Lights, when you see them that they're not being used, please help me by turning them off. If you need to use the laundry room, please use it moderately, not every other day, and we want to save electricity there too. I understand that in a 10-day program, we probably need to do laundry maybe once or maybe twice. I don't know. Shoes. We're a sanatorium, so we want to keep our shoes off in the household, and encourage our visitors to do the same. There's you can bring your own slippers. We have some here that we wash, and they may be hot. So if you have sandals, you can bring those too, but just restrict them to the house. That also means that when we're doing the exercise downstairs in our gym, that you bring a separate set of shoes, sneakers, for that reason. Why do I say that? It sounds really, complicated. The reason why is because we are here in the country, and sometimes people take their sneakers out in the woods, and it's inevitable. Wherever you walk out here, it'll be mud, and they'll bring those shoes down to the gym area. Sometimes we have back issues, so we're going to be laying down on the floor, stretching, and there's dirt, there's poop, there's everything out there. You don't want to bring that indoors. People that have OCDs have a lot of issues with that. And so, yes, please make sure that what we're using in the house, we wipe them clean, and then we can use them for the length of the program. Okay, refrain from using perfumes and lotions that are very strong in aromas, because we are detoxifying the person. Oftentimes, people may get headaches from that as they're detoxing. So we want to really discourage that. You want to use essential oils, that's totally fine. But yeah, we want to stay away from that until the program is over. We may have a talk on toxins, and the moment you put these things on your skin, you will absorb that into your bloodstream. It's just regrettable. It's lamentable that happens to your health. We want to refrain from sharing literature, books, DVDs, anything that is not approved by us. Why? Because I've seen material that is contrary to our doctrines being shared, and that's a problem. And so let us keep the noise down after hours. So if you're in your room past 9 o'clock and you want to have a very vivid, lively conversation on FaceTime with your friends or folks, just remember that walls are very thin here. You can hear the other person going into the bathroom. If you're in the missionary's room and there's someone in the master bedroom, you can hear them. And so, yeah, we want to let them sleep. If that's the case, do that before 9 o'clock. Okay. Let us keep the noise down also during their digital lessons. So we might find ourselves cooking, cleaning while they're actually going through the lesson. It is very distracting for them, not for everyone, but sometimes it is. And so we want to be quiet, whispering while we're doing our things here behind the scenes, okay? Not banging or slamming dishes down, okay? Also, sometimes people have outside visitors. We discourage our staff to do that, because when an outside visitor comes in, it's disruptive to the programs. We want to, hey, how are you? We want to talk. And people are paying a little bit of money to come here, and so they really want to get through what we have for them. We are grateful, very grateful. Having said all of this, I am incredibly grateful, and I'm wonderfully blessed that you decide to partner with us in this great work. Again, it's the final work, and it's my sincere prayer. I've been praying for you, and that we can work together, that you can find the Lord's hand in this place, in this experience of faith for you, and that He may be in the middle of all of us, and that we may find the same joy that the disciples of the old days found in serving others in the form of people, right? I oftentimes can't believe that we're doing this work. It's just too amazing for me. So please let me know. Let me know what I can do to help you make your stay more comfortable. Again, there will be several breaks throughout the day. Nothing is obligatory here. I highly encourage you to, take good rest. It's important for you to be okay, that you're well fed, that you find things agreeable and comfortable for you. You're a blessing to me. You're a blessing to our visitors. You're a blessing from God for you to be here with us. I know that you're taking time off your work or your life, and I know that as we're a charity, it's hard for us to have a salary for things like that. So I appreciate that you have decided to volunteer with us. I know for certain that God will see what you're doing. He does not see what you're doing, in other words. My prayer is that you receive the blessing of your hands bestowed upon you abundantly. I have a small video here that I like to share or close with, and it's Mother Teresa. I'm not a Catholic. I don't have a problem with Catholics, but I do like the example of what this little clip shows, okay? And let's take a look here.
Are you looking for someone?
Yes,
Who?
my Lord.
Do you work for him?
Yes, for him.
And is he happy with your work?
I don't know,
Why do you want to see him?
because I feel lost without him.
Go in peace. A good employer never forgets those who work for him.